Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of Pride Month, checking out artists who are LGBTQ+. Today we're going to be looking at some Coil. We've checked out Coil in the past. They're interesting. Kind of hit and miss with me though. We're going to check out a new one. Well, I don't know if it's new per se. Well, 2020. I think this is one of the newest songs from Coil that I've listened to. The song is called Ostia, the Death of Pasolini. Let's dive in, see what Coil's bringing to the table today. Very sinister, lots of dark foreshadowing going on here.
There's honey in the hollows and the contours of the body. Sluggish golden river, a sickly golden trickle, a golden sticky trickle. You can hear the bones humming.
A really nice combination of short notes and longer held out notes. We have the long bowed strings in here, but we also have the very sharp short notes coming over on this instrument. We do have some pizzicato on a violin at times as well. Interesting bass tone too. It sort of pulsates.
Crushed from the shoulder, you can hear the bones humming, singing like a puncher, singing like a puncher. Keep the world turning, kill to keep the world turning, kill to keep the world turning. Throw his bones over the white cliffs of Dover and into the sea. Of Rome and the bloodstained coast of Ostia. Leon like a lion sleeping in the sunshine. Lion lies down. Lion lies down. Out of the strong came forth sweetness. Out of the strong came forth
So a sforzando into a tremolo strums growth part of the sforzando. Interesting.
in Ostia, murder me in Ostia, the sea of Rome, on the bloodstained coast.
I like the cello here taking over where the bass tone was previously.
The white cliffs of Dover and into the sea of Rome. You can hear the bells humming. You can
The volume swelling.
bells humming. You can hear the bones humming. Throw his bones over the white cliffs of Dover and into the sea of Rome. And murder me in Ostia.
Interesting track. It's a single sound. Granted, there's 6.5 minutes here of continuously progressing and evolving music, but it doesn't really change much. If it does, it's on such a subtle level that I'm not really picking up much of it. What instrument is playing the bass line? What instrument is playing textures? What instrument is playing melody? These do shift. I even mentioned somewhere about like 4 minutes into the track how the cello had taken over for that bass sound. We had this like heavy plucked guitar sound. I don't even know if it was a guitar. I don't know what kind of instrument it was. Maybe something in the dulcimer family. Anyways, this was off to the left through pretty much the entire start of the song, the first 2 or 3 minutes maybe. It wasn't there towards the end. We had another sound that was giving us a very rigid rhythmic movement. The instrumentation changes throughout. There are specific ostinatos, or in this case, I do think most of this is digital. So loops that show up from time to time. The sforzando, which is starting from a really high a really high volume, bringing it down and rising back up. We hear this on the strings when they go ba, except they come in with the tremolo bowing too, so you get that really quick back and forth during that rise up. The I don't know what to call it. It's just tremolo tremolo sforzando. That's wild. I'm trying to think if I've ever heard that before, and if I have, I cannot think of it right now. So that's kind of a wild idea, but that does pop up from time to time. There is also some drone that goes on. There are specific little melodic loops, 3 to 4 notes presenting an idea, and then it goes away. Comes back a little later, presents the idea again. So there's a lot of these loops that are distinguishable, and you can easily say, hey, I remember this from earlier in the track. There are a lot of moving elements. The song is never really static. I don't want anyone to walk away from this and think, what, did he just hear the same thing for 6 minutes straight? There's so much going on. No, I agree. Like there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things changing, instrument choices altering. There are plenty of recognizable motifs throughout this track, but it also never really changes. The feel of it is consistent from start to finish. Take a mainstream track. I don't care if it's pop or R&B or mainstream metalcore. You're usually going to have a lower energy and a higher energy section. When it comes to metalcore, you're usually going to have a rhythmic riff-based section and then something that's just chords. There's going to be a really big division between typically your verse and your chorus. And you can just very easily state, oh, we have shifted ideas. We are in something new now. This song never really does that. The atmosphere is consistent. Most of the instrument timbres are consistent. Pretty much everything in here is in the string family. Some of it is plucked, some of it is picked, some of it is finger picked, some of it is bowed. But I heard very little that wasn't string in here. And so timbre-wise, we're sort of in the same place throughout most of this track. Roll-wise, we typically have some sort of low-end instrument with a bunch of resonance holding out the bottom. There is typically some sort of drone element in the background presenting, at the very least, harmonic information. And then there's usually all sorts of twinkling ideas, just little flourishes everywhere that give us a lot of layered and interconnected rhythmic devices. In the center of all of this are the vocals. That's how every moment of this 6.5 minute song is crafted. But what instruments are chosen for what sections and what specific ostinatos are used in each of these sections does change. But the atmosphere, the feel, the flow of it doesn't. It is simultaneously something that I would describe as generally minimal, in that honestly, once you've heard the first 30 seconds, as far as emotion and atmosphere go, you've really heard the entire song. But if you want to dig to that next level and talk about specific compositional ideas, it's kind of maximalist. It is shifting all of the time. There was one, what instrument was it? Oh, the güiro. Yeah, okay, so there are a couple of non-string instruments. This was such a small section of the song, I almost forgot about it. So a güiro is a ribbed piece of wood that you usually run a wooden stick over, and as it hits all the grooves, it creates like a wooden clacking sound. And if you go over it rather quickly, it kind of sounds like a ratchet. It's used for 3 specific notes in here, and you don't get any tapping. It is just a really quick run across the ribs. You get 3 of them, 1 per bar for 3 bars at about like minute 4:45, maybe 5 into the song. That's it. It never pops up anywhere else. It is such a small, specific moment in the track. And that's kind of how a lot of these ideas are. Little pieces of something larger that you'll hear for a moment and then it'll never come back. But it adds to the atmosphere, this consistent atmosphere with all of these inconsistent parts. I find that to be really interesting. It's an atmosphere of Theseus, in a sense. Where we start and where we end is thematically similar. I don't really feel like there's any emotional movement through this song. There's never really any point where I say, oh, we've entered into a chorus or a bridge. It just feels like one idea, but we're constantly removing pieces and adding in very similar pieces back in. The end of the song is compositionally different, but effectively identical to the beginning. And I find that to be a wild way to write a song. What is this emotion, though? Oh, it just dawned on me too. Let's hit the beginning for a second before we get into musical emotion. Samples. We kick off the song with, I don't know, I got an empty town square. I don't remember the specific samples being used there. I do remember dogs barking, wind maybe, or waves crashing, some sort of white noise. It's an interesting way to start the track off, especially since we don't really hear samples much else in the track. I did say much else though. I do remember one sample coming in towards the end, but honestly, I can't remember what it was. Once again, it's one of those things that I think we heard twice and then it kind of gets lost in the blur of everything. So we have this idea of empty, but also aggression. We have a dog barking. Usually dogs bark when they're afraid, when there's something new in the area, when they're alarmed. We can put it that way. When they're on high alert. I guess there's happy reasons to bark too, but something about this bark sounded a bit aggressive to me. From there, we move into melancholy, intrigue, eeriness. It's not subtle at all. This is a very overt, heavy thematic dressing to the song. We never really escape it. There's small shifts here and there, but I don't think it ever really takes it into a new direction that it wasn't already showcasing on some level. Some sections are more eerie than others, some are more sorrowful than others, but it's not like any of these emotions aren't presented at the beginning of the song. And so it creates a track that to me is constantly in flux while always retaining this heavy weight to it. Something about, I don't know, unsettling dreariness. It doesn't quite feel right. I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. This is not a comfortable song, but it's also a dreary, heavy, somber weight too. Something bad happened. Or sad, maybe, would be another word for it. It is the death of Pasolini. And maybe the somber element is sorrow for this person. I'm going to have to look into what or whom Pasolini is. Maybe look up what Ostia is too. Maybe I can get that translated. Maybe it's the name of a person or place. I don't know. But this general vibe of unease, of tension, eeriness mixed with somber, melancholy, it's what the entire song fixates on. I do appreciate the subtle division of focus though. Like I mentioned, some are more eerie and unsettling, some sections are more somber, some sections are more heavy, more melancholic. It all feels like a natural evolution, though, to take these three emotions and to tweak the percentage of how much the song is focusing on it. It makes it end up feeling like a linear exploration of a complex emotion where different facets of the person's feelings are going to show themselves more than others at a given point in time. And maybe as someone says something or as they think about something in specific, an action or an event, something about the past, what part of their complex emotional response to this is going to be more present than another based on these actions, these thoughts, these words, stimuli. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't think this song would be as effective though with a different production. There is something that ties all of this together. And I really do think it's a tight control over the sonic representation of it. Despite all of the different timbres, despite all of the different interlocking parts and all of the different sounds and samples and playing techniques, it all sounds like it's supposed to be. There's a balance to everything. I mentioned at the beginning that there is a really cool playfulness between the shorter staccato notes and the longer legato notes. That they created a balance between each other. But even when you look at the multiple staccato passages in here, they often interlock in interesting rhythmic ways, where we might have one rhythm that has spaces on, every offbeat. And so another instrument is going to put accents in those spaces and stuff like that. And so we'll end up with two, sometimes three different rhythmic ideas going off that all create space for the other ideas. And they all sort of interlock into ways that allow them to shine where they are, but work with everyone else. I don't know if it's necessarily what I would call a hocket, or maybe there's a little bit of polyrhythmic ideas in here, but again, it's not really what I would focus on. It's kind of a secondary counterpoint. Counterpoint typically relates to melody. It's the primary focus of the song. This is almost like counterpoint of ornamental ideas. I guess on a larger scale too, it's not just about multiple interlocking simultaneous ideas, but also maybe one instrument will play for a couple of beats and another instrument will play for a few more beats, and then another instrument will pick up where they left off. And in a sense, that is a hocket, but it's about making room for all of these different ideas. By the end of the song, I think there are maybe 10 or 11 instruments all playing at the same time, but they're all taking turns. Sometimes in short bursts, like I mentioned, just alternating half beats, but also sometimes on larger scales. Taking a few beats, someone else takes a few beats, and just kind of having this one pocket in the music that's open and trading it, a little baton passing around between a lot of instruments. It's about a very measured response to putting all of these instruments and timbres and musical ideas into such a small space. Crafting it all, rounding off the edges, bringing that sonic element in together to create something a bit more unified, and then placing the vocals within that, with that bit of reverb that helps them feel like they're a part of all of this too. The vocals, I think, if they had been produced any other way, would have felt a bit out of place, because I think what's actually being sung, that raw recording, is actually very prominent on here. I wouldn't say there's a lot of production put on the vocals to spruce them up in any way, but the reverb does a lot to sort of tie it in with everything else. So again, it's a small, measured idea in order to bring everything together. And between the complex writing that we have with all of the interlocking parts, the fantastic production, the consistent atmosphere that is made up of so many moving parts, I find this to be really interesting and way more digestible than most Coil that I've listened to in the past, while still carrying that darker vibe that I kind of know them for. Let me check some lyrics for this one. This song appears to be about the death of Pier Paolo Pasolini in Ostia, Italy in 1975, where he was run over by his own vehicle. Someone else was driving it, just to make that clear. He was an Italian intellectual, activist, poet, writer, and director, best known for his movie Salò or The 120 Days of Sodom. It says you can hear the bones humming, and the car reverses over the body in the basin. His body rolls over, crushed from the shoulder. You can hear the bones humming, singing like a puncture, killed to keep the world turning. And we've reached the halfway point of the lyrics already. There is a lot of repetition going on in these early four stanzas, but it very clearly depicts some of what happened to him in his final day. It says, throw his bones over the white cliffs of Dover and into the sea of Rome and the blood-stained coast of Ostia. So it talks about the murder of this prolific person, and then it says Leon, like a lion sleeping in the sunshine, lion lies down, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. I don't know who Leon is in this story. We go back to the chorus, throw his bones over the white cliffs of Dover, but here it says, and murder me in Ostia at the blood-stained coast. And then it talks about the car reversing again, the bones humming. We come back to the chorus, throw his bones over the white cliffs of Dover, and murder me in Ostia. That's the whole song. There's a lot of repetition to this, but it does tend to focus on Pasolini's murder. And maybe that's what a lot of the eerie elements are supposed to be in this song. The somber elements make perfect sense. When we were talking about the death of a human being, to have somber, melancholy elements to that, right? I could never really understand what the eerie parts were, but it is talking about a murder, not just a death, natural causes. No, this is a distinct murder. Not just about running someone over, but putting the car in reverse and doing it again. And then I suppose to throw the corpse into the Sea of Rome. I think that's the eerie part of it. It's how calculated this is. It's the extent that the murderer went through to go through with this. It's what makes me feel like I shouldn't be listening to this song, that I shouldn't be here, that there is danger present. Maybe I'm not in any danger, but that doesn't mean someone else isn't. That doesn't mean I can't sense that tangibility of tension and anxiety. And it's so fixated on this one idea. Granted, there are those 3 lines about Leon the lion. I don't know. Someone's going to have to inform me about that. But the other 95% of this song are so focused on this moment of murder. None of the lyrics really stray too far away from that. And I think that's why the song is so fixated emotionally on this, why it doesn't develop or go anywhere. It's just right here. Lyrically, it stays right here too. I'm kind of curious why Coil decided to write a song about this, though. What is it about Pasolini, or maybe specifically his murder, that Coil decided was, needed a song to be written about it, needed to be held in art, needed to be remembered? Maybe I need to go read exactly who Pasolini was too. Hearing that he's an activist and an intellectual and a poet and a writer and a director, like, yeah, okay, he did a lot of stuff, but like, a lot of people have done a lot of stuff and don't get songs sung about them. What more specific was it about him? So maybe I'll go, I don't know, browse through his Wikipedia page or something after this. Maybe he's more prolific than I understand. As far as I know, this is one of the first times I've heard his name brought up. So, yeah, I'm intrigued about that, if nothing else. These are, though, to wrap this up, my thoughts on Coil's Ostia, The Death of Pasolini. Let me know what you thought of this. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on, maybe you have your own thoughts and opinion about, please put all of that down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps it up for this one. We do have another video coming out just after this. Yeah, if you're watching this live, it comes out in 10 seconds. Otherwise, they'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.